quick thank you to our sponsors for making this podcast possible. They keep this show free to listen to. Hey there, if you need a little help getting your kids the daily vitamins they need, I've got something to share that will help you as we all head back to school, and it fits easily into your morning routine. Between packing lunches, ensuring everyone's homework, and then navigating the morning hustle, getting our kids to take their vitamins can be a challenge. Well, let me introduce you to my new morning lifesaver, Little Critters Gummy Vitamins. Even my teenage daughters love them. Most kids think they're having a special treat, but I know they get the essential nutrients their growing bodies need. It's peace of mind for me and total yum for them, even if they don't admit it. Did you know Little Critters is the pediatrician recommended kids multivitamin gummy brand? It's true. And it's the perfect stress-free way to kick off the day. So why not make your mornings a little smoother? Shop Little Critters Gummy Vitamins now and start your school year off with a smile. Shop now at the link in the show notes. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for all your amazing reviews. Thank you for being part of this community. For those of you who are in our programs, also thank you for being in our programs. We are so grateful. We have, I think, 75 people in our group program right now, and they're incredible folks who are doing amazing things to better themselves. And if you're interested in joining our community, the Connected Parent Mastermind, please email me at michelle@peaceandparentingla.com and we'll get you all the details. Okay. Today I want to talk about this idea of holding our kids accountable. And I get a lot of comments on Instagram. I guess that's where a lot of my content comes from for this podcast, because I have a lot of interactions with folks. And one of the interactions that keeps happening is this idea, well, yes, I want to be gentle. I want to be a connected parent. I want to be kind. I want to come with empathy and understanding. But I also want to, quote unquote, hold my children accountable for their behaviors. Now, I understand this in theory. I understand what a parent means, that they want to hold their child accountable. And I think what that means, a few things, I think it's very nuanced, right? And it's very complex. I think it means, one, we want our kids to say, we want them to admit, we want them to take responsibility for the thing that they did that was wrong. Like, I'm sorry I, yelled. I'm sorry I hit my brother. I'm sorry I knocked down the tower. Whatever it is, we would like our children to say, I'm responsible for that action and I am sorry about it. And if we don't hear that immediately, then we, as parents, want to point out to our child what they have done that was wrong. And many people want to do it in a very kind, loving, respectful way. Like, hey, honey, you're not supposed to hit. Or, hey, child A, we can't knock towers down. Now, that's not a kind thing to do. And I don't think that in itself is quote unquote wrong, but I think it's also more nuanced than being just wrong or being just right. I think there's a lot around it. So I think if we think a little bit more deeply around parenting and around children and around mistakes and around taking responsibility and just think more deeply. So when we make a mistake, we know we've made a mistake. When I yell at my kids, and I still do, and I'm not proud of it, but it happens. When I yell at my children, I know immediately that it's the wrong thing to do. As do they. Now, do I need someone telling me right after I've yelled at my kids, you're not supposed to yell at your kids? That's not a nice thing to do. You're supposed to come regulated. You're supposed to be kind and gentle. Now, I don't tell my clients that when they tell me I yelled at my kids. I say, you know what? I'm sorry that happened. That must have been really hard for you. Because I want to hold space for them. I want to give empathy to them. I would never shame them for making a mistake. I know they don't want to yell at their kids. and they need space to lean into that hurt. Our children know when they've done something wrong. Social scientists say that kids learn morality the first 2 years of their life. How? By watching all the moral acts that they've witnessed, by watching us not hit, by watching us not yell. Now, if you're yelling and you're hitting, then that's a totally different story. Now, if you're doing it, occasionally and you're coming with amends and all that, that's also a different story. Everything is very nuanced, right? We can't be too black and white thinking around it all. We have to open our minds up a little bit. So if children know and understand morality around 2 years old, then most kids that we're talking about will say under 2, maybe not, maybe 18 months though, they start to really kind of understand. Then they know that they're not supposed to hit. Have you ever seen like an 18-month-old or a 20-month-old hit and then know they're not supposed to? Now, are they always able to, recover and take responsibility? No, they can't. And do they need to be told what they did was wrong? I'm not so sure. I'm definitely not so sure. So when we say we want our child to take responsibility for their actions, what we really are saying is that we want our child to apologize or to admit that they did something that was wrong. But why? Why do we want that? What is the outcome of that? What is the goal of that? If they admit that they did something wrong because we force them to, or because we tell them that they did it wrong and that they feel obligated to respond to us, is that learning and internalizing the mistake? I don't think so. But what I do think is that children have internal shame, remorse, and guilt, and that they will get to that internal shame, remorse, and guilt on their own because they have been given the space. They've been given the space to get to the internal shame and guilt and remorse on their own, and they will take accountability on their own. They don't need us to force them to take responsibility for their actions. We want them to actually take responsibility on their own. So when I hear parents say, I want to hold my child accountable for their actions, it feels like that in that sentence in itself, to me, feels like shame. Like I feel shame when I hear it. And I feel like a child would feel shame when they've been taken to task. You did this wrong, even if it's kindly. You did that wrong. And depending on the child, right? Some children are very shame adverse. Some kids are highly sensitive. We've got a myriad of kids are out in this world. We have a myriad of temperaments out in this world. And I can already see with some temperaments that would be considered an attack on their person. Correction, nobody likes to be corrected. Nobody, not a child and not an adult. We're taking a break to hear from our sponsor so I can bring this podcast to you free of charge. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/peace and get on your way to being your best self. How do you make sure you're coming to parenting with your best self? What's one part of your weekly routine you won't miss no matter what? For me in the past, and for sure now as the kids get older, it's therapy. Therapy has been a large part of my growth and transformation as a mom. And I owe so much of my own change to the work I've done over the years in therapy. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a really short questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Visit betterhelp.com/peace today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/peace. I'm excited to tell you all about FeatherSnap Scout Smart Bird Feeder, a great example of how technology can connect people with nature in really cool ways. I don't know if you know, but I'm from Oregon, and in our house, there are tons of birds. So this Wi-Fi enabled smart feeder combines state-of-the-art camera and app tech with an age-old pursuit, birdwatching. The feeder includes a high-end camera that captures crisp 4-megapixel photos and 1080p video of your feathered visitors. Then use the FeatherSnap app expert-trained AI identification model to nail down the species and categories the birds you see. I cannot wait to get the bald eagle on this camera. Tech that truly helps you tune into the world around you. Check them out today at feathersnapcam.com. That's feathersnapcam.com. Okay, back to the episode. Now, if we have a really strong bond with somebody and we wait for the perfect time and we have a great discussion with questions like, hey, what happened in that moment that you were yelling at your brother? Seemed like something was really wrong. And we can have a collaborative discussion around it. That might promote some accountability taking. But I also think that it should be used very few and far between, because if you're doing that act with every single transgression, won't it feel like you're the correction police and that you're constantly criticizing your child? And that every mistake has to be hashed out and discussed and the wrong and right of it have to be pointed out? I don't think it's necessary. And I think we believe as parents, or maybe society believes at large, that we have to make sure our children take responsibility for their actions. I don't believe that. I believe that children will take responsibility for their actions if they're given an opportunity to, and if they're given the empathy. So for instance, I know a lot of couples deal with this. Like one of the persons in the couple will say, you can't yell at the kids. You're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be being, these connected parents. You have to come with empathy and blah, 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 blah. And you look what you did. Now, what happens when you correct your spouse or your partner? They get defensive. They don't want to lean into the method. They don't want to listen to you. They're mad at you and resentful toward you, as opposed to understanding that the yelling was unkind. Now, if you take that same interaction and you apply empathy and you say, oh, wow, it sounds like you had a really tough time with Maria today. Wow, I saw that. That looked really hard. Are you okay? And now the spouse or the partner says, it was really hard. Man, I feel really bad. I yelled at her. I shouldn't have. And you say, you know what? It happens. It happens to the best of us. And I totally understand that. Now, how much better does that feel for your partner? Also for your child. I think we believe that children don't have the moral fortitude or the moral compass to understand that their transgressions are bad or are not aligned with kindness, or that they are things that they shouldn't be doing. I don't know why we give them so little credit. I think because they're thought of as so inferior. And I think it goes back to maybe this discrimination of children, that somehow they're treated differently, lesser. They're thought of as an unevolved person, which, yeah, their brains are unevolved, but their feelings, their emotions, they're born with a fully developed limbic system. And so I don't know if we need to, I think we have to have more trust in them. We have to have more faith in them. We have to understand that, yes, they actually want to do the right thing, and they actually know when they've done the wrong thing. They do the wrong thing because they're off track, because they can't manage the situation or the feeling or the emotion or all of it, right? And so they hit their brother. And I think with aggression, this becomes a more ignited issue for people. And I think this where these comments were coming from is we had a post around hitting. And so people get very upset about the hitting piece, right? They don't They don't want to quote unquote stand for it. They want their kid to take responsibility for it, take accountability, and I'm going to hold them accountable. When I hear that phrase too, hold them accountable, I feel like that is the gateway to punishments. Like I'm going to punish them because they're going to take accountability for their actions through a punishment. That's just false. That's false thinking. That doesn't work and it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to punish you for a mistake that you made. And now you're going to understand that that mistake was wrong. It doesn't work like that. What does the punishment do? Like, for instance, you're speeding, right? You get the speeding ticket. And the punishment is, a fine of $350. Now, does that make you realize that you shouldn't have been speeding? You already knew you shouldn't be speeding. You're speeding anyway. You're taking the risk because you want to speed. The $350 might deter you for a little while, but likely you're going to speed again. It's not going to make you never speed again. Because that isn't the point. That doesn't work. The logic isn't there. And parenting and people are much more nuanced than just, I'm going to give you the punishment and it's going to hold you accountable and you're going to understand your wrongdoing and then you're not going to do the thing again. It's not how it works. It really isn't. We all know that. But somehow society has tricked us. They've duped us into believing that we are the keepers of everyone's morality in our family, that we have to make sure they understand what morality is. And maybe that's true, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, like maybe that is true. Maybe we do have to be the keepers of morality, but how do we keep and inform and portray morality? By modeling. We model morality. We model self-regulation. We model not hitting our kids. We model not yelling. We model coming with kindness. We model, coming with empathy. And just like the partner example, we model it with our partners too. We don't call them out. We don't correct them. We don't chastise them because it doesn't help and let's take it back one step. What does it do for your relationship with your partner when you do that? And what does it do to your relationship with your child when you do that? So this is why connective parenting doesn't want to do that, because this calling out, holding accountable, erodes relationship. It makes the child resentful toward us. Now, sometimes you might have to point out a wrongdoing, but in the moment of the transgression and during the upset, is that the moment to ask the probing question? And is it, you can't do that, honey. You can't hit. We don't hit. Look at your brother. That's not kind. Or is it, hey, looks like you had a really tough time with your brother yesterday. What happened? We're not telling them you did this. We're inquiring what happened. You had a hard time, just like we do with the partner. We don't say, don't yell at the kids. You're not supposed to yell at the kids. They know darn well they're not supposed to yell at the kid, but you say, hey, you're struggling. I see you're struggling. Do you want to talk about it? And then it becomes this beautiful conversation where we trust one another and where we can come out with our truths and where we're not defensive. I hope this is making sense. This is why I don't believe in correction. And it's so hard on social media to be like, I don't correct well, it's not hard. I say it anyway, just because I like to get it out there and get the people thinking, right? I don't believe in correction. I don't, but I can't fully explain everything, in a post, but it's just a way of getting people to think about what correction is and what it does and how it plays out. But it isn't that simple, right? I don't believe in correction. And here are the 75 things why I don't believe in correction and why I believe that it doesn't work. But so many people look at it very black and white. If your child does something wrong, you have to correct it. If they've had this, hitting transgression or something aggressive, then you have to hold them accountable. But wouldn't it be better if your child held themselves accountable for their transgressions? And they will. And here's how it plays out. So I still get caught up. Please believe me. I get caught up on wanting to call my kids out. Esme and I went on a vacation last week. I've talked about it a lot. I think everybody who knows me in group and everything and my clients are probably so sick of me talking about it, but I lost my mind. I told her, I don't want to sit next to you on the airplane because you're so annoying. She's 18 years old. I told her this. I mean, that's horrible. Who wants to hear that from their mother? Thank God our bond is so strong that she's like, well, I don't want to sit next to you either. But it was a whole thing. Like, we were not doing well. We were sleep deprived. We were on a plane for, 14 hours. It was not okay. And I lost it and I said and did the wrong things. So please don't think that I'm like some perfect parent out here. I'm definitely not. And I lost it with her. And I knew I lost it right away. But she had some culpability in there too. And I called her out where I shouldn't have. But my point in saying this is that she did come back and say later, much later, I'm sorry, Mom. I know I was cranky. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this. I was pushy. I was mean. I was this. I was that. And I didn't necessarily have to point out her wrongdoing. She came to me and apologized on her own later, of her own accord. She thought about it. She got to her remorse. She felt bad. And so did I. And I apologized to her and she apologized to me. And with a punishment, had I punished her, had I said, I'm taking your phone away. We're not going on the excursion, whatever. Would she have gotten there? Would she have gotten to this internal remorse? Would she have gotten to this place of being able to admit that she was wrong? And 9 times out of 10, she'll get there now on her own. And that one took a while. It took a couple of days. And I think it's because I had an upset. Had I not had the upset, I think she would have come around a lot quicker, which she usually does. If I can stay calm and regulated and not have an upset, which is most of the time, but not all of the time, she comes around right away. Within minutes, sometimes within half an hour, she comes around right away and says, I was wrong. I didn't do this right. But if I'm constantly calling her out and correcting her and telling her she needs to take accountability, will she organically apologize, or will she apologize just to appease me because she knows that's what I want to hear? And will it mean something? And so I think that's part of it too. Like, we want their accountability holding themselves accountable. We want that to be organic. We want that to come from within them because they are taking responsibility of their own on their own accord. Their own morality is taking over. All right. I hope this makes sense with holding our children responsible for their transgressions. And I hope I shed a little light on the nuance of that. And I hope this was really helpful. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting Podcast. If you want to join our lovely community, the Connected Parent Mastermind, please do. It's such a great community. We meet 3 days a week. We meet on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at different times. We have lovely people in our program. My coaches run the meetings. I run the meetings. They're so lovely. And we have incredible folks in there because incredible folks are drawn to this work. And so we get the most amazing people in there, and they're all working so hard. And those live meetings are like my heart and soul. I go to them and I feel better every time. So the Connected Parent Mastermind, we'll put it in the show notes, but you can also email me and I'm happy to hop on a call and discuss it. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting Podcast. See you next time.